So everybody, thanks so much for listening. If you're listening to us for the first time, whether it's on audio, as far as on a podcast, video on YouTube, or on audio on the radio, we thank you so much. Please subscribe on one of the internet platforms if you're listening to us on that. We do have a special guest. If I'm a big softball guy myself. I don't care what anybody else is. So I have been watching as a Gators fan, watching the Gainesville Regional. Actually, on Friday, tomorrow, as we're taping this, they'll be playing against Virginia Tech at Virginia Tech. But the team that we'll be talking about did play in the Gainesville Regional, played against Florida and also Wisconsin. Two tough games. And this is Kim Griffin. She is the head coach for Canisius softball. Kim, thanks so much for coming on. Greatly appreciate your time with us today.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
All right, so let's talk about Canisius. Now, I'm from, and you can hear the accent, I'm originally from Rhode Island. I'm an Italian guy, so I know where Canisius is. But for the people around the country that do not know where Canisius is, can you tell them a little bit about the school?
Yeah, sure. I was actually going to say, you're definitely not from Florida, are you?
No. I grew up in Providence. I went to school in Boca Raton in South Florida, the magical place, and now I'm in Orlando, but I'm actually in Rhode Island at the moment. So
Oh, nice. I was going to say Long Island. I was a little bit off there.
Well, it's the Italian accent. Everybody says New York or Long Island, so
yeah.
Sometimes I just roll with the punches and say,
Long Island, Rhode Island.
Yeah, it's the same crap, whatever.
Yeah. Okay. So Canisius College, we are located in Buffalo, New York. Mm-hmm. We are not in the downtown area, but we are in the city of Buffalo. So we're kind of tucked back in a nice little neighborhood. It's right on the border of North Buffalo and the east side. And then there's a lot of cute little neighborhoods all around campus as well. The Elmwood Village is probably the most popular place. It's about a mile from campus. So we're a small school, about a little over 2,000 undergraduate students. We're Jesuit. So, we're in with a great group of other Jesuit schools around the country. We're in the MAAC conference, the Metro Atlantic. There's the MAAC and the MAAC. We're in the MAAC with other smaller private schools. What else can I tell you?
Well, that was good enough for me. I think that was a pretty decent summary. Now, I want to just go into this. So you've been there for quite a while, but even going into softball, before we even go into the coaching aspect and talk about softball and the team in general, talk about yourself. When did you stop playing softball, and even knowing softball was the right sport? I know myself growing up, and a lot of women and men that we interviewed on the program, they play tons of sports when they're growing up. And then they finally find that one sport that they may play AAU or travel ball, whatever it may be, in whatever sport is. When was softball known to you that, hey, I can play this in college, I can coach this, this is what I love and enjoy?
Okay, so I actually don't know exactly how old I was when I started playing. I was probably like maybe 7 or 8 years old.
Fair enough.
My sister played softball. She's 4 years older than me, so 3.5 years older than me. So I just really wanted to be like her. She was very athletic and into sports. And so I just kind of followed her and did what she did. And then as I got older and I started getting a little bit more serious about it, she kind of got into different sports. She was more into, she played basketball and stuff in high school, but she was not as aggressive as I was. She was into she's run marathons. She's a Pilates instructor now. So she's very athletic, but she doesn't have that like aggressive killer instinct that I always tended to have. So we kind of went our separate ways there. But I started playing travel ball and kind of getting involved that way. I grew up in a family that was very blue collar. Both of my parents work, and there's 3 of us in the family. So I didn't play on these like big travel teams. I kind of just played where I could, as much as I could. And I was a pitcher. So I picked up on teams whenever they needed me. And my goal is to just play as much softball as I could. I think I really fell in love with the game probably when I was in like 8th grade. I was a pitcher and I started like getting noticed, I would say, like, and people would talk to me about pitching and it just felt really good to me. I liked being I liked being the one that had the pressure on them. I liked being in the spotlight as the pitcher. And so through high school, I think I played varsity all 4 years of high school, and it became like this part of my identity that I loved. I really loved it. And I went to a small high school where I got to do a lot of different things. I was in band, I was in student government, I was in our just every organization that that I could be a part of at my school, I got to be a part of. And I played volleyball and basketball too. And I just love being on a team. I think that was important to me, and I love competing. And so softball clearly became my sport. Like, I was okay at basketball and volleyball because I'm tall and strong, but I just didn't like love it the way that I love softball. So softball became my focus, and I really started thinking seriously about playing in college and seeing how far I could take my career. I played my college softball at Mercyhurst University. It's a Division II school in Erie, Pennsylvania. And I went there based on the school. Like, I thought I wanted to be an athletic trainer. They had a really great sports medicine department, and I had a mentor of mine that had gone there. And so she kind of introduced me to the school, and I just fell in love with it. And I ended up playing there for 4 years and having a good career there. And then I wasn't ready to leave the game. Like, I didn't know what I wanted to do after that. I did not want to be an athletic trainer anymore. I didn't want to be, then I switched to pre-physical therapy, and I didn't want to go to PT school. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I was able to get a GA position here at Canisius just through some connections that I had in Buffalo. They introduced me to Coach Mike Rappl, and I started as a GA. I did my master's degree in school counseling, and I thought, okay, this is it. I want to be a school counselor. I loved my program. I loved my internship. I loved everything about it. And then they offered me a full-time assistant position, and I didn't have any full-time job offers in school counseling. So I was like, okay, I'll stick with it. You know, I can't turn down a job. And so I became an assistant, and then I think I was a full-time assistant for 4 more years. And then our head coach retired, and I took over as the head coach. And so I guess like my whole time that I was an assistant, people kept saying, like, do you want to be a head coach? Like, when are you going to start applying for head coaching jobs? Like, and I didn't know that I wanted to be a head coach. I just wanted to be the best assistant coach I could be in that moment. And I think that's kind of always the mentality I take. Like, I'm not always looking for the next thing. I'm not always looking at, I like having a plan. I think that's part of my personality, but I'm not always plotting it out. I think a lot of times if you can just stay in the moment and do the best job you can do in the moment that you're in, then the opportunities are going to come for you to go do something else great. And so I think that's always been my focus. Just be the best I can possibly be at what I'm doing right now.
Now, going into recruiting, you said you grew up at a small high school. I went to a Catholic small high school, so I definitely get that. And obviously, Canisius is a smaller college, and going to a smaller college myself, I get that atmosphere. So I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, as a person that's a head coach and you're recruiting all these ladies to come play softball, whether it's a freshman in college that's coming there or a transfer. And we'll talk about the NIL and the transfer portal in just a moment. But before we get into that, do you feel like that really helps you because you grew up in that kind of small college environment, that small high school environment, that you can get these freshman girls that maybe they're coming from far away from New York, or maybe they're just coming from the other side of New York and they don't have any family around? You have to make sure that they adapt to that new college atmosphere.
Yeah, I would say I experienced that as a college freshman, that I was a big fish in a small pond when I was in high school. And then I all of a sudden had that like realization that I was now a small fish in a big pond. And it was very uncomfortable for me. It was very foreign for me. The school that I went to, I graduated with like 80 some kids. And I went there K through 12, and my family, my brother and sister went there. My mom actually went there. So like, it was a place where everyone knew me, everyone knew my family. And then I was all of a sudden I felt like a nobody. I know that I wasn't that, but I had lost that identity that I had like really come to love as a high school student. And so having that experience, going through like homesickness and doubting my abilities, going through all of that, I do think helps me understand what our players are going through, in particular our freshmen, helping them through that whole transition and being able to share my own experience definitely is something that I draw on when I'm helping them through the transition.
So let's go into the NIL, and this is a whole new thing to all of us as people that love college sports. Obviously, you're working in college sports, so you really have to get on the ball fast. And it seems like this is moving in all sorts of directions so fast that people can't keep up with this. So talk about how the NIL has affected your team, the camaraderie, and also how this transfer portal could change a team in within a year. 4 girls could leave, 4 could come in. This is a whole different ball game for everybody in college sports, men's and women's.
So just starting with the name, image, likeness, right. For us, I think as a smaller school, we're not getting, our student athletes are not getting these huge, corporate deals and sponsorships. Like in that way, I think that it would be amazing if they were. I'd be very happy for them. I think that then there are struggles with that too, helping kids manage large amounts of money and helping advise them in that way. They probably would have more money than I would, but it's more about for them. Just for example, like we have a couple of girls who give lessons, and in the past they were not allowed to advertise using their own name or their own picture that they were giving lessons. So it really inhibited their ability to have a job and make money that was bettering the softball community as a whole. So in that regard, it's like all of those little things, those things that we were so worried about before, if they accepted money for giving a lesson that was advertised on a website then, or a camp or something like that, then they would have to pay the money back. We actually had that happen here. And so those little things, it just makes it so much easier for our student athletes to advocate for themselves and earn money. And I definitely think it's a positive. The fact that student athletes were quote unquote, like their name was owned by the NCAA. They couldn't use their own name or their own picture to earn a living is, when you think about it, kind of messed up, because the NCAA is earning millions and millions of dollars by using these young student athletes. And so with every new piece of legislation that comes out, with every advancement or whatever you want to call the NIL legislation, there's going to be challenges. Anything new, it's going to take a while to get used to it. It's going to take a while for student athletes to understand the full breadth of the legislation and how they can use it to their advantage, but also how it could make it harder for them. So I think it's a good thing. It's not affecting our players in the way it's probably affecting even Florida's players, for example. I follow a lot of the current big time college players, and I see what they're able to do, and it's interesting. And I'm hoping that there are people in place at those schools to help those student athletes manage what they're doing, because they're very adult things that they're doing. And some of them may not know what to do. So hopefully the schools are able to have someone in place that can advise them a little bit and help them a little bit. But yeah, I think people think it maybe is a bigger deal for us than it really is.
You go into the transfer portal and how you feel it's affected you already, if it has, or how you feel like it could affect you in the future.
Yeah. I also have more mixed feelings about the transfer portal. I think it gives the student athletes more freedom to make choices that are based on what's best for them. But I think with that freedom comes a lot of student athletes feeling like the grass is greener on the other side, kind of a mentality. Somebody had sent me, actually it was our old head coach, Mike Rappl. He sent me a statistic the other day, and it was about women's basketball, and it was the amount of players in the portal. It was like the year previous, and he said that over 30% of those athletes are no longer playing college basketball. And these are secondhand statistics, so fact check me, please. But that to me that's a scary statistic. That's like, to me, that means that there's something that we're failing to do well with the portal. And with the ease of going into the portal and not having any sort of like a penalty of sitting out a year, I think it makes student athletes more likely to jump into it without maybe understanding all the ramifications of their decision. A lot of places are gonna with more people transferring in and out, a lot of places will have scholarship money available, but I would have to think that a lot of players are going to end up, the majority of players are going to end up taking a smaller financial aid package than what they were originally getting. So I guess time will tell. We haven't had I don't recruit heavily out of the portal. I may end up looking in the portal for one specific person in one specific position, depending, but we haven't had a lot of players enter the portal yet. So, or hopefully not yet, but we haven't had a lot of players go in. So our needs have mostly been met recruiting wise through the recruiting that we've been doing in the summers, recruiting high school players. I'm a big fan of recruiting 4-year players. I think that in order to fully like buy into the culture and understand our systems, you need to be here for a significant amount of time. And then I also think that, I don't know how logistically how this would work, but I think that grad transfers, the portal maybe should be different for grad transfers with the COVID year. And now we only are going to have 2 more years of players with the COVID year, but our kids that are sophomores this year that are going to be juniors, they're the ones that don't have it. So just our juniors and current seniors still have the COVID year. I'd be more likely, I think, to take a COVID year kid, a 5th year, than just a general transfer, but I'm always open to both. It's just, I don't know, tricky.
No, I understand. Again, for people that are listening, this is Kim Griffin. She is the head softball coach at Canisius College. So, Kim, let's go into this and kind of get on to the season now that we got all the NIL transfer stuff out of the way. Now, Coach Rappl was there for 35 years. Obviously, you were assistant with him for 7 years. What was it like to make that jump from, somebody that's been with the team since it started playing? I mean, 35 years is a long time. I know you were there with him, obviously, like we said, for 7, but it's kind of a big jump to fill somebody's shoes that's been there for 35 years.
Yeah, I mean, Coach Rappl started the Canisius softball program before I was born. So, how many? 8 years before I was born. He was coaching this team 8 years before I even existed. So, he coached this team through everything. He brought it from a program that wasn't a Division I program that had no budget money, and the stories he tells are great about the struggles that they had and everything that they had to deal with in those times. But for him, really, Canisius softball was his life's work, and he really dedicated his life to this program and to making it great. And he won a lot of championships while he was here. He was the head of the most successful athletic program or athletic team in the Western New York area. And so there was definitely pressure associated with taking that program over, especially because I was a first-time head coach. So I had a lot of experience working in his system, a lot of experience working at Canisius and with our players. But what I really lacked was being the head honcho, that experience of you make the decisions and you have to live with them. The transition was difficult. I think there were a couple of things that I think I did really well. And then there were plenty of things that I think I did really poorly. And a lot of it was just trial and error and figuring things out for myself. What worked for me as a head coach, what mixed well with my personality, what didn't. Coach Rappl and I are very different people. And so for me, I couldn't try to be him. I had to be, Kim Griffin. I couldn't be Mike Rappl. And so for me, it was just really a lot of trial and error figuring things out. But I was really lucky to have an administration that stuck with me and players that stuck with me and that trusted the process. And to think about where we started 8 years ago and where we are right now, I'm incredibly proud of it because it wasn't an easy road. It wasn't, we don't have every resource that some teams have, and there's a lot of things that we have to overcome here. And so for us to accomplish what we accomplished this year, we're definitely really, really proud of it.
I want to get into this. This was a question when I found out that you guys were playing the Gators, and I researched into you guys. I know this is kind of a corny, silly question, but obviously the mascot has the same name as your last name. Is that just kind of a hypothetical thing that worked out, or like how did that all pan out?
It just happened. Yeah. Honestly, I think it's one of the things that Coach Rappl liked about me when I interviewed for the grad assistant position.
Right.
My wife actually played for Coach Rappl here back in the 90s. She graduated in 99. And we were dating at the time when I came to interview, and she was like, he's going to love you. She like gave me a pep talk, because I was nervous about meeting him. He's, in Buffalo, New York, he's a softball legend. And I was, she dropped me off for the interview, and I was nervous, and she said, he's going to love you. Your last name is Griffin and you're tall. I was like, great. Okay. He likes tall, strong people. And my last name is Griffin. So I definitely think it helped me, but it is a funny thing. At camp, I joke that I tell the campers that my dad owns the school, and they think it's really funny. But then, I let them in on the secret, but yeah, it's just a coincidence.
I want to get into some audience questions, and then we'll get into the Gators tournament and the Gainesville Regional. So, you've been playing softball. Obviously, you played in high school. You played even before that, going into college, coaching it. Obviously, softball has grown a lot. I'm 32. Growing up, I've been, as being a Gators fan and, announcing softball, being friends with all these women that have played. I feel like the notoriety of the game is getting bigger. What do you feel about that? Do you feel like it's grown? Do you feel like it's stagnant?
It has definitely grown.
Okay.
So just speaking from the last time we were at regionals, which was 2009, to being at regionals in 2022,
right.
It is a totally different scene. It is the media coverage, the nationally televised games. I think being on TV has helped our sport immensely. The fact that every single one of my family members could log on and watch us play in the Gainesville Regional, and to have a full broadcast, not just cameras live streaming, but a full ESPN broadcast. We didn't have that in 2009. I don't know exactly what the TV contracts were in 2009, but our regional was not on ESPN. I can tell you that right now. There was no, I'm sure there was commentary, but it is incredible to see the growth of the sport and how many more kids are playing it, how many more people I don't know, like really how many more kids are playing softball, because I think it's always been popular, and it's always been popular around this area. But I think the number of fans of the game has greatly increased. And I think that's happening across the board in women's sports. Women's sports are getting a lot more media attention, and they're being broadcast in bigger venues and played in bigger venues. And I think that people are realizing watching women's sports is fun. It's not, I think there was always this idea that, a women's sport was a lesser version of the men's sport, and that is not the case. And that is definitely not the case in softball. Softball and baseball are not the same sport. And I know I'm biased, but I would 100% watch a softball game over a baseball game. And I know a lot of men who would say the same thing.
Is it tough going to all these, I guess I'll frame it this way. Is it tough going on all these road stands at the beginning of the year?
Yeah, it's just what we're used to, though. Like we always travel a lot at the beginning of the year. So it's tough in the sense that we're on the road all the time. We're always the visitor. We're not always the visitors at terms, but we're visitors like almost all the time. We actually end up getting more comfortable being on the road than we are at home. And I think that was evident in our first home weekend. We played Quinnipiac and Marist, and we handled Quinnipiac, but we got swept by Marist. And I think there was just it was actually snowing when we played Marist. But we went from University of South Florida back to Buffalo, and it was snowing. So it was out of our comfort zone, even though we were home. But there's a lot more of our friends and family there. Right. There's that little extra pressure of having more eyes on us, student body at games. So it's tough in the sense that we're like road warriors. We spend a lot of time on the bus. Our bodies get beat up by the bus rides and the hotels. And but we use it as an opportunity to bond and to get close. And I think if you ask any of our players, like, when does the real chemistry start to build on the team? They're going to tell you it starts on those first couple of trips. We do a lot of team bonding and stuff in the fall, but the time where we really come together is on those long trips in the spring.
Is it tough recruiting? Because obviously you're in upstate New York, you know, you're in Buffalo, it's cold as hell. I know that being from Rhode Island. Plus we had a freaking brutal winter. Whether you were in New York or Rhode Island, wherever, this past year. Is it tough recruiting these girls that want to go to out west, to California, Nevada, all these states, or down in the Florida, those southern conferences and all that stuff, for them to stay in New York?
Yeah, I mean, what I have learned, and it's interesting because I'm from Buffalo, is that the kids out west that want to have an adventure, that want to get away from home, that want to get out of California, getting those West Coast players to Buffalo isn't that hard. But you got to find the right ones. You have to find the ones that want to. It's hot and sunny in California, and it's getting hotter and sunnier and drier there. So I think there's a lot of kids that, New York has a ring to it. And I always tell them, we're not in New York City, we're in Buffalo, or the other end of the state. Western New York is very different than New York City. And they're like, no, but it's still New York. And I've always wanted to go to school in New York. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. So there's definitely a draw to being in New York State, which to me, I'm like, okay, but you could say the same thing about California. Like you think California and immediately you're going to think of like LA, the beaches, maybe San Francisco, the mountains, but the majority of Californians don't live at the beach. The majority of them live in the Inland Empire in Southern California, where it's hot and dry. And so I think it works both ways. Our local kids, we recruit heavily out of Western New York. Some of our best players are historically and this year have come from Buffalo, New York, or the surrounding areas. I mean, our Megan Geis was the pitcher of the year in our conference this year. She's from Orchard Park. Erin Hufford was the player of the year this year. She's from Cheektowaga, which is about 10 minutes from campus. And then a lot of our other starters are our local kids. Gianna Fezolari's from not too far down the road. Christy McGee-Ross, our center fielder, she's from Cheektowaga. So, we're able to find a really great mix of kids locally, and then bringing kids in from the West Coast. We've got one player from Florida, Destiny Falquez. She is from Fort Lauderdale. So it's an adjustment. Don't get me wrong. Getting used to practicing indoors, dealing with the cold, it's definitely an adjustment, but we find the right kids.
Is it more that you've kind of been an asset to the program and, building these winning teams, and that these girls like you as a coach, that these girls are staying in the Buffalo area and staying at Canisius, where maybe they could go to explore at other schools around, New England, around New York, or even, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, all over the East Coast in general?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to think I have some part in keeping them here, and that they like playing for me and they like being a part of the program that I'm leading. But I think there's so many pieces that go into it. And when players come from far away, their parents want to know that they're being cared for, and the players want to feel like they're a part of something that's not just a business. And one thing that's important to us is that they feel like they're a part of the family while they're here. I know I told you I live 2 minutes from campus. My house is literally next door to the campus. And so
that could be good or bad.
Yeah, I mean, it's got its benefits, but like, I'll show you. Like, if you look out this is actually my wife's office, but if you look out the window, like, those are campus buildings out there.
Oh, so, wow.
Yeah, like, I'm very, very close. And I think that part of it is that I want to be accessible to them. I want to be here for them. I love having team meals at my house. I love hosting them. We do movie nights in the backyard. I love having
You're
them
accessible.
Yeah, and I have to set boundaries and make sure that I'm not accessible 24/7. When it comes down to it, like, if they need me, if they're sick or hurt or in the hospital or whatever, like, I'm going to be there. And so I think I'd like to think that they, you know, they consider us their family, and their parents feel good knowing that even though they're going so far away, they're going to be cared for and looked after, not just as players, but as people. So Buffalo is actually a really awesome city, and I'm biased again because this is my home, but I think we've had so many players come through the program and then end up staying because they fall in love with Buffalo as a city. It's filled with amazing people. We're known as the city of good neighbors, and it really is it's a big city, but it has a small town feel to it. So I think there's a lot of reasons why kids choose Canisius and a lot of reasons why they stay. And I'd like to think I'm part of that, but there's definitely a lot of things that go into it. And a lot of great things about the school that make people, you know, fall in love with it and not want to leave.
All right, as we go into the end of the interview and talk about what recently happened in the past week, Kim Griffin here, and she's the head softball coach for Canisius College. Kim, let's go into this. So the Gainesville Regional happened. You played Florida and Wisconsin. You played a lot of these big teams, as you just reiterated earlier on in the interview, playing Purdue, Ohio State, USF. It's a whole different ball game going down to hot as hell Florida. Rain delays for this, delays for that. And then obviously in this big, you know, game atmosphere playing against these really tough teams as far as the Florida Gators and the Wisconsin Badgers. What do you guys take from playing in that regional against Florida and Wisconsin?
One of the things that I said to the team in the post game after we lost to Wisconsin was, the moment you walk into a stadium like Florida, the moment you walk into their facilities, you automatically just feel like you want to level up your game. You want to, at that level, you know, you just want to have respect for the game and just play it at the highest level that you're capable of, because you're surrounded by greatness. You know, you walk in and it says, I think it's 2014-2015 National Championship right on the big their softball facility is right there. So it just makes you want to be great. And I think if we can carry that back to Buffalo, we can carry that back to our practice facility, which doesn't look like Florida's practice facility, but if we can carry that feeling and that motivation back with us, then we definitely gain something great by going there.
All right. So, you know, the Gators are playing Virginia Tech tomorrow, where they start their series against them. Virginia Tech is obviously a great team. You played the Gators, obviously, in the regional. What is your take on that game? And also, how far do you think Florida will go in the tournament as you played them?
Yeah, so I think Florida's got the pieces that Florida have that are better. They're fast. And they're an explosive offense. You know, they've got a couple of long ball hitters, but they've just got a tremendous amount of speed, and that is how they've been winning games. They don't have an ace the way that Virginia Tech has an ace. So they have a staff of good pitchers, but I think Virginia has the better pitching. Virginia Tech has the better pitching. So it'll kind of, and I also think Florida has phenomenal defense. So, I mean, Virginia Tech's defense is good too, but we always say that great pitching and defense wins games. So I would give Virginia Tech the upper hand there. So I'm excited to watch. I actually I'm going to a bachelorette party this weekend in Virginia. And so it's like a weekend away with the girls. And I was like, okay, I'm going to have to bring my fire stick because I have to watch Supers. And they're a bunch of my college teammates. So I'm hoping that they want to watch too, but I'll be watching as much as I can.
All right. So last two questions. I appreciate your time. Again, Kim Griffin. Kim Griffin is the head coach at the University of Canisius for the softball team there. What should fans look forward to next year as far as the team?
So we've got a lot of great returners. We graduated a couple of key. Oh, sorry.
You're good.
So we graduated a couple of key players, but we have some of our players ready to fill their shoes. Graduating Erin Hufford in left field, graduating Lindsay Dennis at first base, and then two of our pitchers, Shay Allison and Emily Nicosia. But we've got players ready to fill those shoes, and they're big shoes to fill. But all of our, we have a very good sophomore class this year, had a very good sophomore class this year. They're all returning as juniors with 2 years of championship game experience. Our freshman class is incredibly strong. We've got a great pitcher coming in. We've got a lot of speed coming in. We've got some great middles coming in, a couple power hitters coming in. So I'm really excited. As much as I want to just kind of enjoy and celebrate the season that we just had and feel good about it, I'm already excited about getting these freshmen here and getting going in the fall.
All right. And I hope everybody enjoyed this interview. Again, Kim Griffin. She is the head coach at Canisius College for their softball team. Kim, first of all, thanks so much for coming on. You've made me a Canisius follower now. I will definitely be following you guys, and we hope we can have you on again. But before you go, can you tell people where they can find more about you, the team, follow you guys on social media, all that jazz?
Yeah, so you can check us out at gogriffs.com. Our team handles Griffs softball at Griffs softball. That's for Twitter and Instagram. And then my Instagram, I'm on social media. I'm not really big on it, but my Instagram is, I think it's at KGriff32. And then I think I don't know what my Twitter is. I don't go on Twitter. But Instagram, I'm an Instagrammer. So yeah, at KGriff32. That's me on Instagram. Check me out.
All right, we will do that. We'll put that in the description. Kim Griffin, again, the head coach for Canisius softball. Kim, thanks again. And like I said, I hope we can have you on again to talk some more Canisius softball as the season goes back into shape.
Yeah, thanks for having me.